So for a lot of purposes, this fake would serve just as well as the real thing, right? You could hang it on your wall, and you can even tell people it's the real thing. And it certainly looks just as nice. It's got all the brush strokes and all that kind of stuff, But for whatever reason, the Monet is worth, millions of dollars probably. And the fake, the forgery, the fraud is probably not worth the time that it took to make it, assuming that somebody knows it's a forgery. So, what is the difference between the authentic Monet and the fake that is like virtually identical? The real painting, for one thing, has a very limited supply, right? Yeah, there's maybe a few dozen that he did his whole life. And if we kind of allowed someone to make a forgery of this Monet and sell it for millions, very quickly the supply would go way up, right? Would have a flood of artists, making a copy of this, and the price obviously then would have to drop because we'd have this huge supply flood. So that's one thing, just like the limited supply. Monet's never going to make another one, which, if you think about it, is also part of why, like, when an artist dies, the price often jumps. And the other thing about it that people don't really think about is that there is like a story. Okay, as I said, if these two paintings are identical, you could hang it on your wall and you could tell people, hey, this is like, this is a Monet. And it could, if it was the forgery, they wouldn't even know the difference. They would believe you, right? But what if they like figure out, oh wait, well, you said you have this Monet, but it's actually showed up in this museum, you're a liar, right? Or you could say like, oh, somebody comes in your house and they look at it and say, oh, what a beautiful painting. And you're like, yeah, it's a forgery of a famous Monet painting, right? It's just not as cool as saying, oh, this is the real thing. So a lot of NFTs have these things going for them: a limited supply and a story. Another way to look at it is like collectibles. We had a story in the sports world recently where Tom Brady, considered by many to be the greatest NFL player of all time, announced his retirement, and the football from his last touchdown ever sold for like over $1 million, I think. Okay, and this football, if you took it to a scientist, is identical to every other football that they use in an NFL game, right? But since it's Tom Brady's last touchdown football, it's almost like alchemy. You've taken something common like lead and transmuted it into gold. And then Tom Brady unretired, and the football that had been bought for $1 million is no longer his last one, and the value of it plummeted. So NFTs are a lot like that. So the high profile ones, like there's this one where it's this like crazy girlfriend, or like overexcited ex-girlfriend or whatever, and she's got kind of like this wide-eyed stare, and it's been used around the internet for a decade. And she made an NFT of it, and it sold for like $500,000 or something like this. And this is a picture that we have has been used on the internet literally millions and millions of times, right? So there's no scarcity to the picture itself. Okay, but because the woman who actually is in the picture turned it into an NFT, and it was one of a kind, it now has a story to it, and it now has a limited supply to it, right? And so now it's, you've taken these pixels that are worth literally nothing and transmuted them into gold somehow. because you've added, these limited supply features and the story features. So if you own this NFT of this woman, you can now say to your friends or whatever, oh, I've got the one that, the actual woman made, and I own it. And so that's the only difference between an NFT and just something that you would see on Facebook or a Google image search, is that according to a blockchain, there is an owner.